So, Paul, has there been any movement on the transfer front since we last spoke with some players? Obviously, your window's still ongoing.
Yeah, no, it's the squad is certainly the same as it was. Obviously, the window's shut, so that takes out any Premier League options in terms of loans. But clearly, it's very much still open. But I kind of just saying there, as much as we've got a couple of spaces, certainly in terms of loans available to us, and we will continue to make inquiries or look. I think the squad's, not in a bad place at the minute. We might end up having to use them through necessity. At this moment in time, that's certainly not the case. If I felt that we could bring a player in that would make a difference, then I would do that. But I'm not just going to, add a couple of players to the squad for numbers. Not particularly when it clearly does run until March and quite late in March. That over time we might end up needing a player in that area of the pitch. So yeah, I would say I'm sure you probably will keep asking anyway, but it's not as probably pressing as maybe we felt it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm sure the one week I don't ask is when you'll actually sign someone. So that's the balance.
Yeah, probably that's how these work.
And on that same note, has there been any further interest in any of your players that are sort of available if the right offer comes in?
No, it's again that's been quiet now. Whether that again changes, as in if people have looked and not got any targets, I'm not sure. But we haven't got a massive squad, but we have got decent numbers in general. The treatment room's relatively clear, so we probably would be in a position to let one or two lads out if there were inquiries. But as I've said before, there's no sort of desperation there to move, make space or move anyone out.
Would Evan Curry be potentially available for loan?
Possibly. That's something that we've had conversations with Evan around. What's been better recently is we've had some reserve games, as we did yesterday, and got one in another couple of weeks that at least allows him and others to, I guess, play in front of ourselves, but also with his teammates. That earlier in the season we were struggling to get realistically for whatever reason, just seemed to be the most difficult thing in the world to organise. So that's been quite good, and at least they're getting some football. Because I think certainly for someone like Evan, we want to try and help him develop. And some of that, as much as we can try and help on the training pitch, is clearly through experience of playing games. But he has had, albeit very limited, but has been involved a couple of times with us and got some minutes, which for a player of his age still is pretty good.
I spoke to Jason and Andrew this week, and they said that you have started talking to some players about contracts in the summer. What players have you been speaking to?
Obviously, I'm not going to go into that in terms of names and details, but it's something that we've kind of discussed and spoken about. I think my experience here before, that was always very difficult in terms of our season finished, and then within a day or two, we'll be trying to talk to players about keeping them or letting them go in some instances, and ultimately that's never really going to be an ideal approach. So we would like to try and get ahead of the game in some regards with that. I'm due to speak with Andrew in particular about plans on that moving forward. Again, there's always pros and cons to this, because you see it at clubs where someone gets a contract and then gets accused of sort of taking it easy because they've earned the contract, and you've got others that are supposedly performing well because they're trying to earn that contract. And again, it'll be the same at every single football club. In the summer, some players will move on. That's just the reality of it, and that's never nice or easy. I've said before, it's probably the hardest part of the job, but it's just what happens. And what we want to have is ultimately a squad that is still very much together, pulling in the same direction. So we have to be, I think, still aware of that and sensitive to the different, like I said, pluses and maybe negatives that can be around from trying to, I guess, plan sooner rather than later for people's futures.
So in terms of looking ahead to the weekend and team news, how are you looking? Are there any fresh injuries from last weekend?
No fresh injuries. The one that probably was expecting to have back was Jordan Maguire-Drew. That looks, well, he's almost certainly not going to happen. Disappointed with that in terms of, there was no wrong information to yourselves in terms of press. I genuinely believed I would have him available, and it just seems to be lingering a little longer than we would have liked. Again, we've had the scan. There's nothing major there at all, so nothing changes. But what he has done is he's just felt it when he's jogged for a length of period. I think he can do sort of some football movements, but it's the natural, I guess, accumulation at distance that is proving a bit of a problem. So that looks like it'll cost him, or cost us, in terms of his availability for the weekend. And I'm not sure how much longer, in truth, then that will be. He's certainly not anything major. Difficult to, I guess, to put a frame time on it, because I think we all probably expected him to be fit for Notts County.
So is it just a case of waiting until ultimately that pain subsides when he's, as you say, running for long periods of time?
Yeah, and when I say long periods of time, it's certainly nothing like he would do in a match. But I think, say, he could go in and out of corners and perform volleys, or jockey forward, backwards, those sort of movements. But just once he's done a few laps of the training pitch and then goes again, he's still feeling that. So it's clearly not quite right. And what we don't want to do is make that worse and lose him for a length of time.